Welcome back to the Brotagonists podcast. I'm your bro host, Carter.
And I'm your bro host, Mason. Welcome back. We got a fun day for you today where we're taking a step into one of our favorite series ever, The Wheel of Time. We'll be doing a protagonist book breakdown of book 1, The Eye of the World. We will then move on to a Wheel of Time IQ test where Carter will ask me questions to test my IQ of the Wheel of Time. Keep in mind, this is a 14-book series, 15 including the prequel, and I may be lacking some knowledge. We'll then play another game called Hold Your Breath, and we'll get into kind of the details of it when we get there. And then we're going to do a Watchtower review, where we will break down what it would take to make a successful Wheel of Time series because of how poorly the one recently attempted has performed. And then we'll end with the Weapon of Wisdom by me.
Perfect, Mason. Well, let's just start this off with, what are you reading right now?
I've been really struggling to read lately. I've just had a lot going on, and I'm still reading Zelda, even though it would take me like 2 hours if I just sat down and read it. But I've just not had the energy for that. I've also not had the energy for Howling Dark, which is book 2 of The Sun Eater. These books are just have so much detail, everything's important, and so much firepower going on all the time that if you're not ready to listen with 100% focus, you're not getting it. And so I've just not had the energy to give it 100%. It needs a little bit more fluff in there for me.
So what are you going to just hold off on this one till maybe later on and go to a different book, or are you going to power through? What do you think?
I'm going to power through. I'm hitting my spring break. I'm traveling to Peru tomorrow, which means like 10 hours of flying, a 3-hour layover. And my lovely fiance does like to take her time getting ready and getting ready for bed. And that's why she always looks so beautiful. And I don't. So I'll probably use all that extra time to do a little bit of reading. I'll get there. It's just that lately I've just been drained, but hopefully the break gets me back on track.
Very good. Yeah, you're ambitious for, trying to do the Sun Eater at the same time as you're studying for your boards.
Luckily, the boards is more just practice, which is just mentally draining. I don't really have to study a ton.
Very good.
What are you reading right now?
I just got back from a trip/vacation. And unlike you, I don't do a lot of reading on my trips or vacations, just because I find myself doing things that I can't normally do. But your situation is a little bit different going to Peru. But right now, I am still reading The Gates of Fire, which goes over the Battle of Thermopylae or Thermopylae. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Thermopylae.
Thermopylae. Yeah, I probably sound like a fool, but the Battle of Thermopylae. And it's really cool. Like the part I'm at, it's showing why the Spartans were as good as they were and the kind of the training that their soldiers went through all the way from boyhood. And it's very neat. It is fiction. It's historical fiction, but it's not like fantasy or sci-fi. It's not completely made up, but it is historical fiction because he's making up a point of view and trying to extrapolate on that. And it's different, but I'm excited about it because, like I said before, it was one of Pierce Brown's inspirations in writing Red Rising.
Great. You inspired me to watch the 300 movie recently, and I think we can appreciate the action, but it's like a better memory than it is a movie, where like, it's like, this really is not the greatest movie ever, but it's total hyper masculine vibes, and those are sometimes fun to watch every now.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie for the protagonists.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the bro. But today, like we said, we are diving into the awesome world of The Wheel of Time, written by Robert Jordan. And the first book in that series, publication-wise, is The Eye of the World, as many people know. And that is right here. Here is my anniversary edition I got a couple years ago. Silver. Here we go. It says 30th anniversary right there. Wow. And I just love this book. You got the map. It's very silver, and I like silver.
That's a lot nicer than my copy of Eye of the World.
I actually do have a couple random ones, but I don't have them in order. So I think I have like 7, 9, and like 11 or something like that. But the synopsis before we get into this book goes like this. In a quiet village, Rand al'Thor and his friends are forced to flee when monstrous Trollocs attack. Led by a mysterious Fade, guided by the powerful Aes Sedai, Moraine, and her warder, Lan, They journey across a vast and dangerous world. Along the way, Rand begins to suspect he may be more than just a farm boy. The group is hunted by dark forces tied to the Dark One, culminating in a confrontation at the eye of the world. It sets up a much bigger prophecy driven story about destiny, power, and the fate of the world. Pretty cool.
It is really cool, and it takes almost like 3 books to really get into all the lore and everything that's going on to know really just how deep this is, because it is 14 books, and you, don't really they talk about the Dragon Reborn in every book, and you don't really understand the magnitude of the Dragon Reborn or everything that that means and that entails in, uh in the first book. And something you also don't understand is the turning of the wheel, like the wheel of time that's also not mentioned in our synopsis. I always imagined it like a sewing wheel because they always say like the wheel weaves patterns in it. And it's like weaving the threads all together. And the wheel kind of creates the scenarios and puts the people in the place they need to be at the time they need to be there. I also think that, well, not I think I know. In this universe, it's reincarnation. It's not ever into something different, but people are reborn again and again and again. And so the main character, Rand, has lived thousands of lives, and the wheel constantly uses him when he is needed most and then puts allies with him to support him in his quest. And everyone in the world is reborn throughout the turning of the wheel and throughout the weaves of the threads of time.
And that's kind of why I think of it as like a wheel of time, like time is like rolling forward, but it's definitely a sewing wheel. And the dragon reborn is kind of like a focal point of the pattern, and other threads or people are drawn to him in events and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um,
The Taviran. We'll have to go into the Taviran in later books when we review those.
Most definitely, most definitely. And for our spoiler-free review, I mean, this, like I just showed you my 30th anniversary edition. You need to read this book, I feel like, if you're wanting to call yourself a scholar of fantasy eventually. But that's okay. You don't have to. It's a huge series, and it can be tough and intimidating to get into. But I think we'll get to this eventually. But we do recommend this series. But a little more about it. This is just a classic fantasy comfort food, basically. And I think a big complaint about it at first, when people get through the first book, is they're like, oh, this is a lot like Lord of the Rings in the first book. But of course, because Lord of the Rings was a huge inspiration for this series, it does branch off the more and more you get into the series, especially, as you get into book 2, 3, 4, and then all the way to 14. It's dramatically different story. It's, a farm boy, dark lord, and mysterious magic. But it's done on a massive scale. It's basically like Lord of the Rings vibes, but with way more lore and a slower burn. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, I would say that is right. And just for the people watching on YouTube, the Wheel of Time is this entire top shelf right here. And this really thick book at the end is like a guide to help you keep track of things. I think there's over like 2,000 characters in these books. and
Oh my gosh.
and all the places and everything, and it just helps you keep it straight when a name comes up in the later books. I had a friend just recently asked to borrow it, and I would definitely agree. This is if you're really into fantasy, you at least know a lot about this series, if not having read it. I understand how it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's a slow burn for sure, but some of the books are just amazing and fantastic. Wheel of the Eye of the World was kind of in the middle or on the lower end for me is like the books that I liked in this series. But what kept me going and why I really wanted to finish it is one is it's a classic. Two, my favorite author, Brandon Sanderson, finished this series. He wrote the last 3 books as Robert Jordan passed away due to, I believe it was cancer after the 11th book. And his wife, Robert Jordan's wife, chose Brandon Sanderson to finish the series, and he wrote the last 3 books. And I've heard at the time that you can see where Brandon gets a lot of his inspiration, or he writes similar to Robert Jordan. And I definitely see that in the Brandon's writing, how they go for a lot of different narratives. There is a main character, but there's also a lot of main characters at the same time, different points of views, 3 or 4 different stories going on at the same time that all converge. And there's definitely differences too, but a lot of similarities. and I know Brandon read these every year, each one every year until the next one would come out. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was his favorite series and his favorite author. And how cool is that that he got to finish it? And that's what made me want to continue after some of the books that I wasn't as keen on.
Yeah. Looking forward to the final 3 books, knowing that Brandon Sanderson wrote them, really, it kept me going too, because I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson fan, just as you are, and that was a huge motivator, but it was unnecessary after the 2nd book. I felt like, "Oh, I don't even really care as much anymore that Brandon Sanderson finished these. I just wanna finish this series because it's so great." And Robert Jordan is so, great to read. The world is way bigger than this book. It's almost like you read it and you're just scratching the surface. And obviously there's so much more lore in these books because it is 15 books, whereas like the Inspiration Lord of the Rings is 3 books, right? And then The Hobbit is a book. So although there's all the extra books that Tolkien wrote about Middle Earth
Yeah,
as
and
well.
appendices and all those things. It's probably after Middle Earth and the Tolkien stuff, this is probably the biggest lore and world building project that we've seen in fantasy.
Yeah, because there are guides to it, just like you have sitting behind your behind you on your shelf. I mean, the names the only one of the only complaints I have is some of the names are so similar that it's hard to keep track of them. And
Yeah.
so I do think it was very beneficial to read these books in order, read the series straight through. I don't understand people that are like, and maybe this is you, listener, but I just don't understand how you can read one book and then like wait 6 months, read the next one, and then wait another year and then read the next one. And it's just, I don't know how you can remember it all, but it's impressive. It's impressive. But for me, it was very beneficial to read them through in order. And so my suggestion would be to set aside a few months to read these books. And that's kind of like all you got on your plate, and maybe mix it up with some stuff in between, but nothing too crazy.
Are you looking at your time or
No, I was looking at my book. I was just like looking how big it was. I was looking
Oh,
over it. I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, yeah, this is a book that demands attention. Just like you were saying about Howling Dark.
yeah. I would say the first 3 books are a little bit I wanna say lighter reading, but the first 3 books were like a practice trilogy, then all of a sudden at book 4, Shadow Rising
Yeah.
is that's when it, like, really takes off and kinda goes on its own thing, and
Yeah.
I think that's, like, kind of when Robert Jordan decided what direction this was going, and that's when I really got invested into the series. I loved book 2 quite a bit. I thought books 1 and book 3 were pretty, like, good, but, like, not my favorites, and then throughout the series, it became one of my favorite series ever.
Did you have a chance to listen to the I think it might have been the foreword to the book by Robert Jordan to each book on Audible. He talks about it's kind of like an interview with him, and he talks about why he wrote the book the way he did and stuff like that. So he gives an interview, and he's like, I basically got the idea. He was talking about Rand, his main protagonist, and he was thinking, well, I want to write a story about what if the chosen one didn't wanna be the chosen one. And I know this is maybe a popular trope nowadays, but I almost feel like Robert Jordan invented the trope of the reluctant hero or the reluctant chosen one, if that makes sense,
Or
where
really a chosen one that kind of sucks for a lot of the books.
yeah, and he just doesn't want to be doing what he's doing. He just kind of has a bad attitude about it, and he's reluctant about it, but that's kind of what Robert Jordan was saying was, I wanted to imagine what it would be like to be the chosen one, but, not want to carry that mantle.
So, stepping into Eye of the World specifically, we've talked a lot about the series and kind of things around it, but let's talk a little bit about book 1. What did you like about it? What did you think that this book did well?
You know, the world feels I know I touched on this, but the world feels huge right away. It talks about places and peoples that you're just imagining, like, where are these people? Where are these places? These cultures, and there's magic, but you don't know how it works. There's a magic system. There's deep history. There's a strong sense of mystery around Moraine and the Aes Sedai, which a little mystery doesn't hurt and get hooking you in a little bit. And the feel good vibes of a great group adventure and that kind of energy early on was cool. And it does start off a lot like the the Lord of the Rings, with them leaving their village and going off to an adventure, running away from an evil. And it does build intrigue. The Eye of the World, this first book, it does build intrigue about the larger story. There's prophecies and the Dragon Reborn. I mean, that's a great title, and it just keeps you interested in what that means. But that's kind of some of the positives I have. What about you?
I think what it did really well is that there was action right away, and there
Mm.
was like a dark tone right away, and a intensity and a tone that made you kind of like gear up, like, okay, like we're going. And I liked that a lot. I also like that there's a lot of characters and they're all very different. Like a Matt chapter is very different than a Rand chapter, which is very different than a Nynaeve chapter. And if you don't blend well with a character, there's always the you're gonna get a different perspective later, and I liked that a lot because I found characters I did and didn't like. But it's very similar to the Fellowship of the Ring for like the first half of the book matches the first half of the Fellowship very closely, where a wizard type person, Moraine the Aes Sedai, shows up and takes four people from this village and takes them on a quest basically. And then the Aragorn character, Lan, the lost king from a fallen kingdom, is there to kind of help guide them and protect them. He's like, okay, you doing it word for word, buddy, or are we gonna get something different? But at the same time, the template is so good, you're still intrigued in following it. You're just like,
Yeah, he just gender swapped the magic person.
yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Mason. Do you have any critiques of the first book?
Other than that, it's too similar to the Fellowship of the Ring, and I would say that it's too much adventuring with nothing happening, you know?
Mhm.
Or like the problems that come up are kind of solved instantly, and it just keeps we're going to this town. Someone's trying to bother us in this town, then we're going to this other town, and someone's gonna bother us there, and then we're gonna run into this issue and that issue, and we're all trying to get to the same spot, but it just goes on for a really long time. Like 600 pages of the book and you're just like, we get it, everyone's lost, can we come back together? And I feel like once they all meet up and make their last push to the Eye of the World, that's when like the book really turns on, where we get to see the ways, we get to see the first two Forsaken show up and really see this bigger conflict that is going to be coming about in the future books.
And you touch on the end. The end is, I thought, really well done, but the ending is one of my only critiques is that the ending is kind of confusing and rushed compared to the buildup.
Yes.
Do you think it's just a slow start, or do you think it's a necessary foundation?
I think it's a necessary foundation because the world is so big. But I do feel that I stand by this. I don't have any sources to cite for it, but I do feel that these first few three books, Robert Jordan did not exactly know the direction it was going. He might have had an idea, but he did not really know what it was going to be completely yet. Because once like the Shadow Rising comes in book four, you kind of see like better action, more detail into the bad guys, and it seems like it's a very clear direction going forward with just like some twists and turns in there that happen as the story developing goes. But I feel like the rushed ending to this one was kind of like, okay, we got to have a climax, we got to have a conflict, but I don't really know what I want this to be yet, so I'm gonna kind of keep it quiet.
Yeah. In your opinion, who is the most intriguing character so far in this book?
In this book,
A lot of people think Moraine is the real main character in the first book because she drives the plot forward way more than Rand. And I think that's one of the big mistakes that the adaptation made is that they focused too much on Moraine at the first when they should have focused it on Rand, the real main character. But I can see why they erred that way, but it's hard to see why they did that. We'll get into this later if they've read all the books.
most im- so I remember in this book, I really liked Lan. I
Yeah,
really liked that they hinted like this guy's a big deal and he is like living very beneath like who he is.
I think it's hilarious how huge he is compared to Moraine on the cover.
And his horse Mandarb is just huge.
Just huge, huge, huge.
Yeah, I really liked Lan, and I think at this point Perrin was kind of my favorite character, but by the end Matt Cawthorn was my guy.
That's the same
And
with
Lan
me.
stayed cool the whole time.
I remember I remember not liking Matt at first, but coming around and him being my favorite chapters.
Um, and I think this book also set you up to really want to read the next book. And I thought The Great Hunt was a really fantastic book. And like the very last line, without giving out too many spoilers, ends in a way that you want to move to the next book, despite any complaints you might have had of the first, because of all the buildup, everything that's happened. And this is the final line: "The prophecies will be fulfilled," the Aes Sedai whispered. "The dragon is reborn."
Whoa.
And you're just like, okay, let's go. What's next? And then The Great Hunt, which comes in as a fantastic book that I really, really enjoyed.
That's a good last line. The dragon is reborn. The dragon is reborn. I was just reading the book and it said that Robert Jordan taught himself to read at the age of 4.
I guess that's what it takes these days.
Wow. What a guy.
So, a very solid book. It's a classic. There's definitely some flaws in this first book and some complaints we have. And I would say, in general, most fans of this series would probably rank Eye of the World on the lower end of this series, but still solid, really good, entertained, and it is a world building masterpiece to start on in this quest. All that being said, Carter, what did you rank this book?
Before I give you my ranking, I just want it to be known that I personally would not recommend this book, but I would recommend this series. And this book is a necessary start, if that makes any sense. I love this series so much. This book, there's 15 books. So one of them has to be, a couple of them have to be on the lower end. And this one was on the lower end for me. And just, off of pure enjoyability and trying to put it up against other books that I read, I ranked this book at a 6.7. And how about you?
So, I also want to go on record and say that I would only recommend this series to high people that are really into fantasy, people that have read long series that go through everything with their characters, that really enjoy reading and are really ready to take on this high fantasy that is a slow burn at times, but in the end, it's going to be worth it. So this is definitely not a series for everyone. This is definitely not very different than the Fourth Wing book that we reviewed, but it's probably gonna get a similar score. I enjoyed this book. I had some complaints about it, but I overall enjoyed it and I was entertained by it and I got invested into the characters. I gave this a 7.3.
Agree. Well, this is going to be an easy one to come to an agreement on.
Want to meet in the middle at 7?
Yeah, because as I do think it is lower than a 7 personally, and you think it's higher, but I think it should be there because you have to read this series eventually if you love fantasy, and I don't want to put out a ranking that discourages anybody from starting it.
And listeners, I promise, I just had a friend finish. He was telling me I've gotten to book 9 like 2 or 3 times and I just haven't been able to finish. And I said, "You just have to. You just have to." And I really pushed him and I even gave him my guide that's right there and made him read it. And he was like, "I get it. I just get it. It was completely worth it. I loved the ending and I felt so accomplished when I finished this series because it's just so big."
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Do you agree with the 7?
I agree with this. I think that's probably the most appropriate score. What does
Yeah.
Goodreads have it though? Just so we might be wrong. Some of our that we lots of different opinions out there on.
Goodreads has this book at an 8.4 because I think that diehard Robert Jordan fans and Brandon Sanderson fans are going in there and ranking it higher than maybe it should be. Or maybe we're wrong. We're just too.
There's a group of people that had these coming out like every year when they were kids, like Brandon Sanderson, and probably just fell in love with them the way we fell in love with like the Lord of the Rings movies or like the
Yeah.
Stormlight Archive or the Red Rising. Like, oh, we're waiting for them to come out as they go and
Yeah.
fall in love with it. But then 30 years down the line, they might just be like, yeah, didn't you see that this is like this?
Yeah.
Those people that grew up with these, I think they're really special to them.
This is a classic fantasy genre. And I think that a lot of people are getting so used to modern fantasy that it's hard to convince them to read classic fantasy, but it's so worth it. And I think it's really important to preserve classic fantasy and keep it relevant. That's what we're bringing this book to you today for, is to preserve the classic fantasy and keep it going. Yeah, honestly though, the last 3 books of this series that Brandon Sanderson wrote were so good. Actually, didn't he say that Robert Jordan had it planned for just a 12th book and then that's it? But then
Yeah,
he saw
but
all
it
the
ended
notes.
up being huge.
Yeah. Brandon saw all the notes to it and he's like, I think this needs to be 2 or 3 books. And there were still huge books.
If we ever become famous enough from this that we could interview Brandon Sanderson, I would really like to have a long conversation about the Wheel of Time and exactly how much he had to go off of
Yeah.
and all the things like that.
Those would be some fun questions. I know he might be getting too big for us to have a shot, but we might be able to do it. He might have some time for some small shrimp like us. But he said I saw today that he said he's 33% done with the screenplay for Mistborn.
So exciting. There's a teacher at my school that he's been recommending people Mistborn,
Oh,
and I like approached him in his office like, "Hey, I've heard a rumor about you." And we talked like for like 30 minutes about books, and he's followed our podcast and
oh,
stuff.
very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, he's like, "I got a road trip coming up. I'm gonna listen to a lot of your episodes."
Oh, nice. Well, shout out to Mason's professor.
Yeah, he's a dentist, but Dr. Wiesman, you're the man.
Very good. Okay, well, your official protagonist ranking for the first book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, The Eye of the World, is a 7.0 flat.
You know, I'm not even mad about it. I think that's very appropriate. Of course, I think all my rankings are accurate to begin with without your input.
It's a completely different 7 than the 7 we gave to Fourth Wing
Very different.
for completely
Completely
different.
different people would recommend these two as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Oh,
right,
very
that
good.
brings us to the Wheel of Time IQ test where Carter should have questions prepared for me.
I do, Mason. I have some questions for you.
All right, is there going to be some light spoilers in these?
There are going to be light spoilers in this IQ test. Nothing crazy, nothing that's going to ruin your experience reading the first book or any of the series. And honestly, you'll forget by the time you even start if there's any
We
spoilers.
just have like 2,000 characters.
So, for those of you that have been around, you know how the protagonist IQ test works, but Mason made up this game and the average IQ in the United States is a 98. So we start our game just to be easy at a 95 IQ. And so every question that Mason gets right, his IQ will increase by 5 points. And every question that he gets wrong, his IQ will decrease by 5 points in this topic. Then there's an 11th question at the end, the bonus question, which is worth 10 points. So, Mason, this is Wheel of Time, a little more heavy towards Eye of the World trivia.
Gosh, it's been a while since I've read Eye of the World. I think that was like first year dental school. All right, let's
Okay,
see.
you're at a 95. What is the name of Rand al'Thor's father?
Tam Althor.
Good. That is correct. What village are Rand, Matt, and Perrin from?
Will Two Rivers suffice?
That's not going to suffice.
Oh, let me think. Remembering the name of like like their
The Two Rivers is more like their county-ish,
uh
or like the biggest city near them. But they're from a village.
I know, and I just can't remember the name of it. Why am I drawing a blank?
This is going to be like me with the Red Rising questions I got wrong. I still can't believe I got wrong Aja Al Grimace.
Like I can't think of it.
Emmons Field.
Oh, come on. And then the old blood. Okay, let's go.
I know that you knew it. Don't worry. No judgment. What is the name of the inn in Emmons Field?
Gosh, it's the one that Egwene's.
That's right. That's right. I'll give you a hint. It starts with a W.
I can't remember. It's like, is it the White something?
You're very close.
Wait, White Harbor? I don't know.
It's the Wine Spring Inn.
Wine Spring. I wasn't gonna get it.
Here's an easy one for you. What Aja does Moraine belong to?
Oh, now there we go. We're back on track.
The Blue Aja. Exactly. Okay.
Hopefully, there's not many more places. I can't remember those.
Okay. What is the name of the gleeman who travels with the group early on?
Tom Maryland.
There you go. Correct. 100. Question 6. What is the symbol of the Aes Sedai?
The Serpent Ring?
Yeah, what is it? What is it called? But you described it. That's good enough. But do you know what it's called?
No, I don't.
A serpent biting its own tail is called an Ouroboros. Okay, question 7. What is Matt Cawthon's weapon of choice? There's 2 answers for this. Quarterstaff. You got it. You're killing it.
You're gonna get the really hard questions in here to humble me.
Let's see. What is the eye of the world actually made of?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. They go through like the forest, and then there's like that tree man with
Yeah,
them.
the Green Man or whatever his name is.
Yeah, the green man, and it's just water.
It's a pure, untainted sardine.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Interesting,
Wow.
right?
Yeah. It's been a while since I read this. And I don't think I even remember what Sidene and Sidar were.
I wouldn't have remembered. Okay. What are the children of light commonly called?
With the white cloaks.
All right, you're doing great. You're doing great. Here's kind of a you should know this, but I can see you missing it. What is Matt Cawthon's weapon that he receives later on in the book after his quarterstaff? The books.
In the
It's
Eye
a,
of the World.
just in the Wheel of Time. He's given a weapon by those people through the portal, and it's like it starts with an A, and it's a made up word. Remember, it's like a
I,
long stick with a kind of a blade at the end of it.
I don't know. To me, that's a quarterstaff, but
It's the Ashendara. You knew it in your head. But you're at
uh,
100 you're at 105 after 10 questions. And
no,
here's for 10 points to go for the highest score ever on the Protagonist podcast. What is the name of Perrin's axe?
parents' axe. I have no idea. Didn't know it had a name.
Well, I'll give you half credit for that because it is a trick question. He doesn't name it. He actually struggles with using it. So he doesn't name it. So you're right. So I'll give you half credit for that with 5 points. And your Protagonist IQ for the Wheel of Time series is 110, very much above average there.
It's so hard. There is so much in these books to keep track of. And
So,
and this book that I read was, 14 of these books ago, and several other books outside of it. That was hard to stretch the memory and be like, oh my gosh, I've heard Wine Spring Inn 100
well,
times.
you did a good job.
All right, Protagonist Nation, that takes us to our next game, which is what I don't know the actual name of it, but I've seen other podcasters play it. I'm just calling it Hold Your Breath. And as you might have seen it, is I'm going to give Carter a topic. For example, his best looking friend, Mason, and he has to hold his breath until I say a friend of his that's better looking than me, which he would just like not ever be able to breathe again. But that's kind of how it works is he's going to hold his breath until I can name something better than the character or the thing that I give him.
And if I can't hold my breath that long, I just like am stuck with that choice.
Yeah,
I've never seen this game. That's
you've
hilarious.
never seen it.
No. It's kind of like break the stick, except I'm having to hold my breath.
So I don't know how long some of these will take. I don't really know Carter's taste in a lot of these things, but we're going to see how it goes. So the first one, I have three lined up. We'll do all three. I don't know if we'll keep
Okay.
all three, but we're going to do all three. The first one is hold your breath until I name a better female protagonist or just a female character from fantasy. And you have to hold your breath until I say one that is better than Yasna Kholin. All right. Yasna Kholin or Shalon Devar. Yasna Kholin or Selena Sardathian. Yasna Kholin or Violet Soaringale. Yasna Kholin or Katniss Everdeen. Yasna Kholin or Nynaeve Almira. Yasna Kholin or Cho Chang. Yasna Kholin or Leia Organa. Yasna Kholin or Vin Venture. Yasna Kholin or Hermione Granger.
Hermione Granger. Dang, dude.
I was running out. I wrote down like 10, 15 moves.
I like Hermione, but you know what? It's probably more because I like uh
Emma Watson.
uh Emma Watson. Yeah, because I always had a crush on Emma Watson growing up.
Didn't we all?
But Yasna's so dope, Yasna's so cool that I couldn't just let my breath. You almost had me laugh at Cho Chang. I was almost stuck with Cho Chang. Oh my gosh! Wait, the Sardathian is the Throne of Glass, right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
just like making fun of her name because every single chapter of her books, I'm Selena Sardathian and I'm the best.
My cheeks hurt, man. That was funny. I didn't expect. Oh yeah,
All right.
Yasna's dope.
We have two more for you.
Yasna has the coolest powers, though.
Oh yeah. No, she's awesome. She's a really good female character and in
Okay.
a really epic high fantasy. All right. The next one is hold your breath until I name a series better than Red Rising. Red Rising or The Wheel of Time. Red Rising or The Stormlight Archive. Red Rising or The Bloodsworn. Red Rising or Mistborn. Red Rising or Dark Elf. Red Rising or The Empyrean. Red Rising or Foundation. Red Rising or The Witcher. Red Rising or The Sun Eater.
I think the Sun Eater is better than Red Rising so far, only because it's completed. When I read Red God in Red Rising, I may have a different opinion. Well, Stormlight was tough. I would say my favorite 3 series are Sun Eater, Red Rising, and Stormlight, and then maybe Mistborn after that.
All solid choices. All right, we have one more. So this one's just kind of for fun for me because I didn't know how long those would take. um, and so this one was just a topic I've been wanting to cover for a while because I think the early 2000s, 2000 to 2010, were like the best era of movies. And so I want you to hold your breath until I can name a better early 2000s movie than Gladiator.
When did Gladiator come out?
Like 2001 or 2002, I'm pretty sure. All right, hold your breath until I name a better early 2000s movie than Gladiator. Gladiator or Troy? Gladiator or Kingdom of Heaven? Gladiator or Dead Man's Chest? Gladiator or Sorcerer's Stone? Gladiator or White Chicks? Gladiator or Spy Kids? Gladiator or National Treasure? Gladiator or Tropic Thunder? Gladiator or Holes? Gladiator or Ella Enchanted? Gladiator or The Dark Knight?
Huh.
Gladiator or
I like The Dark Knight best, better, more enjoyable. But Gladiator is really sick. I mean, I don't know if people would say Dark Knight's better, but for me, if I had one movie to watch over and over again, it'd be that one.
I really love The Dark Knight. Really love it. I do think it is a little overhyped. I think a lot of people consider like one of the best movies ever. I don't even know if it's the best of the trilogy. I really like The Dark Knight Rises. I liked Bane quite a bit, but I think it's because Heath Ledger did such a good job as the Joker that it's kind of the I don't know, the aura of it, just the last Heath Ledger product that we get.
I actually like Batman Begins better than both of them
Really?
because I love Liam Neeson and I love him becoming Batman and just the origins of it. And I don't know, the Scarecrow is good. I like origin stories.
Fantastic trilogy, the Christian Bale,
Yeah,
Christopher Nolan Batmans.
yeah, definitely agree. Definitely agree. Yeah, I was kind of waiting for other ones too, but I can't hold my breath that long. And I thought Dark Knight was
All right. What did you think of that game?
I like that game. I like that game. Hopefully the listeners can hear my inhale and exhale of breath. I was trying to exaggerate. But yeah,
All right.
that was a fun game. That should bring us to our next segment, our Watchtower review. What would it take to make Wheel of Time, the TV show, actually successful and more book accurate? So I would say it's moderately successful, but I don't watch it because I've heard so many things about it that make me not want to. But I know you've watched it, so you might be more valuable in this conversation, but I do have a lot of talking points.
Yeah, so it's mixed feelings I have about the show versus the books because I watched the first 2 seasons really before I started reading the books.
Oh,
And so, like, initially, I was kind of like I feel like because they left so much out, you're kind of confused. And I felt that when I watched it with Yuriko really liked it. I think she thought a lot of the Aes Sedai were really cool. If there's one thing the show got really good, it was the magic system, the weaves, and the just like kind of the overall parts of the Aes Sedai. A lot of it wasn't super accurate, but the Aes Sedai as a whole was pretty good how they captured it, and I think that's what she liked about it.
hmm.
Um, and I thought like it was never going to be my favorite TV series, but I was like, yeah, I want to keep watching it and whatnot. But once I read the books, I was like, I get why people hate this. This is season 2. It was arguably one of the better seasons, but it just wasn't accurate to the book at all. And season 3 was starting to kind of get more on track, but also they're just doing huge things that aren't in the books at all. And so when it ended, I was not surprised when this is such a niche thing. And then you're going to kind of alienate the people that are into this niche thing by making it completely inaccurate and not really respecting the original art. that was the Wheel of Time.
Is it over, or are they gonna keep going?
No, the show got canceled.
Well, no kidding, I didn't even know that. So, yeah, because they alienated their niche group. It was gonna be us. So, I do have, several points because I have done research on the show, but apparently not enough and not recent enough to know that it got canceled. But to have made it an actual successful show, they needed to commit to the core story, like you said, and stop reinventing it. Because there is, from what I could tell, there's too many invented plot lines and altered character arcs. And the main thing I heard about the show, probably from you and others, is that they focused on Moraine basically as the main character. And I think that, recentering Rand as the protagonist early on and continuing his arc would have been more successful for them. But I know they had a good actress in Moraine, so maybe they were just trying to lean into that. But I think it weakens the plot when you're deviating from the main story.
And I think Brandon Sanderson's talked about this. I think they had a different writer writing every episode, and it was not cohesive at all.
Whoa.
Like, we're going to have spoilers in here because I need to talk about all that's wrong with this show.
Fair enough.
So, spoilers ahead. The show's not going to be finished. I wouldn't recommend watching it because you're not going to get something finished. They killed Loyal in the last episode of season 1.
What?
And then all of a sudden, he's alive again in the first episode of season 2.
What?
And then they kill him again in the second to last episode of season 3. And this dude does not die in the entire series.
What the heck, dude?
And so it's like, okay, so I guess he didn't die, and we got less of an explanation as to how he was alive than somehow Palpatine returned.
Dude, what the heck? What, were they just like totally not trying at all?
Dude, he didn't even, how in, I think it's Fires of Heaven, where Moraine and Lanfear have their conflicts, and major spoilers ahead, books and movies, skip ahead about a minute or two, how in the books, Moraine dies, is, taken in by the
Yeah, she's
elephant.
just,
The foxes and the snakes. And after her conflict with Lanfear, and she's gone pretty much until book 12. That didn't happen. Like, Moraine lived.
How is that conflict even in season 3? If
So
it's not,
what they did was they made Rand go to the Aiel before getting Callan, which so basically they were trying to merge Dragon Reborn, Fires of Heaven, and Shadow Rising into one season. And to be honest, overall they did a pretty decent job of getting it together. But they just did so many things major like that. You're just like, no, this isn't even like an artistic choice anymore. This is you just
messing
taking a
up the
big
story.
dump on the story.
What are they thinking? Like, and did they even have meetings with Brandon Sanderson at all?
I think they did in the first season, which was probably the most accurate to the books. But I'm pretty sure he left early on in that because his name doesn't show up in the stuff early on. Or let me take Brandon Sanderson in on it. I think Robert Jordan's wife, Harriet Dougal, is still alive. And she was involved in, I think, wasn't she Robert Jordan's publisher or something? Like, she actually knows books and knows storytelling.
So, do they make Rand the clear central POV by season 2 and 3 at least?
No.
So,
Rand is very much like a side character.
I just feel like the emotional spine of the series is Rand versus Destiny. And without that, I feel like everything would feel scattered. And
The one thing that they did, the one character they got really good was Egwene. I thought they did a really good job with Egwene. And Nynaeve they got accurate, but she's an annoying character. So
and you were talking about the magic system, how they did decent with the Aes Sedai, but did they clearly define the rules and the magic system rules? Like, did they distinguish?
They definitely broke the three vows all the time.
So did they distinguish Saidin, being tainted and Saidar being clean?
Very loosely. They did not get into it. I bet if someone only watched the show, they would not know what Saidin and Saidar are, like the difference.
And something also I was looking at was they said that basically the magic, they're just performing with like hand waving and CGI blasts. But in the book, it's more like slow, structured weaves,
I think they got it pretty good with like how the weaves come in. I at least that's how, maybe because I saw the show first, that's kind of how I imagined it all kind of coming in. So here's my opinion of what it would take to make a Wheel of Time series good.
Give it to me.
You got to go all in. balls deep. Like we gotta be in there, and someone's gotta want to make this and not really care if it's a success or a failure or how popular it's going to be. Because we need to do it the Lord of the Rings style, where all the actors are there for a long time and they're filming everything. And the nature of it is it's 14 books. If you did one season per book, they're going to age 15 years by the time if were able to do one season per year, which usually takes a lot longer than that. So it just doesn't work we'll see if the first season is good, what we need to change. They seem to go all in, get a team of writers, have Robert Jordan's Harriet Dougal and Brandon Sanderson, if he has time, or people that are really into the series, find a way to condense the story a little bit and make a clear, cohesive story with multiple seasons and then film it all consecutively and not take the breaks. You got to do it like how Lord of the Rings and The Hobbits filmed them all up front and then just release them periodically. I think that's the only way to do it because if not, people lose interest over 15 years. You know, they just got to get down to business.
This was my idea. Just, not having watched the series, but this is my idea on how to set up this series perfectly for an adaptation. So there's 14 books. We're not going to count the prequel, the 15th book, because we don't really need it for the story or the seasons. If we need to do flashbacks, we can do that. But 14 books. I think 7 seasons is a great number of seasons for a show. So I say go 7 seasons. I don't care if each season is a different amount of episodes. You just do what feels right to finish the season. So whether it's 8 episodes or 12 episodes, do what's right. Don't force anything to be shorter or longer than it needs to be. I think season 1 is books 1 and 2. Season 2 is books 3 and 4. Season 3 is books 5 and 6, and so on, where there's kind of like at the end of every book, there's a mid-season finale. And then you go on to the next book's finale for the finale and of the season. And Game of Thrones, people stuck around for 7 and 8 seasons and it was perfect time and it kept the hype going and everything like that. Yeah, but you're right. 14 seasons is too much.
Well, just think about a really popular show, Grey's Anatomy. Like you and I watched it probably up until season 12-ish, and then you kind of just get, okay, this is getting repetitive.
I watched it until McDreamy died.
Yeah, that's I think I watched until Alex Karev left, which I think was season 15, but I was pretty tuned out for the last little bit of it. And now I don't watch it all. And I think a lot of people that grew up watching it are like, yeah, not really anymore. But
yeah, you can only go so long. But what's crazy is that Wheel of Time has been around for 30 years and they had all the material right in front of them and they couldn't just go from the books. Like these writers are trying so hard to mess up something that's right in front of them. And Game of Thrones finished the series and did a much better job. Despite the very last couple episodes, but they did a much better job with a series that wasn't even completed. Crazy.
No, like I feel that a lot of writers that when they're kind of adding to someone else's work or they're doing something different, feel like they got to change stuff just to kind of add like their artistic twist or make it their art and not just using someone else's art. And I think they feel like you have to make changes, but what fans want is we understand that there needs to be changes to fit the format and condense and maybe please an audience. But it needs to be a truthful adaptation. Like the Dunes did such a good job. The Harry Potters did such a good job. And actually, I was very impressed with how good the Lord of the Rings did. I read the appendices for the first time in my most recent read of The Return of the King. I read the appendices. I was like, oh, it filled in all the spots I thought were fluff that they made up. A lot of these were real. All of these have done such a good job of being faithful to the original art. But if you ask anyone that's read these series, you would say, yeah, they made some changes. Yes, they added some things to be different or they left things out. But you still think it's a truthful adaptation that you enjoy watching. And it's nice to see your books on the screen.
What they need is to bring in a lore guardian who has real authority, like what Peter Jackson did with the Tolkien scholars on the Lord of the Rings. There's a high-level creative consultant whose job is protect the canon, flag unnecessary deviations, and preserve long-term arcs. That was just a genius move, and that's what you need. I think it's just a no-brainer, and it just drives me crazy that they didn't do that with such an amazing series, and maybe one day it'll happen.
Yeah. It would be a huge project to take this on, and that's when the companies that are gonna do this, it can't really be about the money. It needs to be about the fans and making a good quality product that they're going to enjoy, and I just think that they went in with the attitude of, "We're gonna wing it. We don't really care if you like it or not,
Yeah.
or you're
Well,
wrong."
to succeed, the bottom line is the show needs to stop asking how do we adapt it to TV and start asking why did millions of people love the story in the first place? And, if they follow the spine of the books, center on Rand, respect the magic system, and slow down and just build the world, it could still become one of the greatest fantasy shows ever made if it does, ever gets its legs again.
Bones are there. Because it's been so recent, I doubt it'll take place until we're old men. Getting there. I'm turning 30 in a few days or a few weeks.
That's right, old man. I'm already there. Join the old person's home.
Is there anything you wanna add to our Watchtower review of the Wheel of Time?
No, just my sincere hopes that, one day there's one that, is done right. And if not, then you know what? If you liked kind of a little bit of what you saw in the show and you haven't read the books, you should go read the books and maybe that itch will be scratched. And the story's so good. Just play out the TV show in your head. That's what books are for. That's why we love them.
If you did like the TV show, you will love the books. I liked the TV show when I first watched it, and then I read the books. And I still have an appreciation for the TV show. I wouldn't say I hate it. I just wish they were more truthful to something.
Well said. This next segment is a fan favorite brought to you by Moe's Seafood and Chowder on the Oregon coast. And that segment is The Weapon of Wisdom by Mason today.
All right, I have a quote for us today from Robert Jordan, the author of this Wheel of Time series. I don't know if this one's actually in the books or not. I just looked up quotes from him, and I thought this one was kind of funny. And I have a very brief thought that I'd like to share with it. And the quote goes, "Anyone who claims that old age brought them patience was either lying or senile." And I would say that as I've gotten older, I've also feel like I've lost my patience for things. I feel it's almost like a mountain where obviously when you're a young kid, you don't have patience for anything. And then all of a sudden, and you learn to be patient, and all of a sudden you just lose your patience with everything and it goes away. But what I take from this is not that you get more grumpy as you get old, but that patience is a choice. You don't just become more patient because you get older. Experience can help you become patient. But if you ever don't make the decision to change or to try to be patient with yourself, with others, or with a situation, you're not ever going to gain patience. It's up to you to learn as you go through your experience. But just having age just does not make you a more patient person. You're either lying or senile. And I've lived that as I've become a little bit more annoyed at things as I get older, but learn to try to be patient through them.
I like the message. Did Robert Jordan have any children? Do you know?
I don't actually know. I don't know a ton about Robert Jordan other than I think he's from North Carolina or something.
Yeah. I don't either. That's a funny thing. You're either lying or senile. That's good. Well, thanks for sharing. And thank you, listeners, for being here. And thank you, watchers, for watching if you're on YouTube. But those of you on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we thank you for streaming today and encourage you to share us with your friends and follow us on our other platforms because we put out some kind of different formatted content on, each different platform and you may enjoy. And just a quick recap of what we did today. We talked a little bit on what we were reading. Then we went into a kind of an introduction of the Wheel of Time, the world, and then we talked a lot about the first book, The Eye of the World, a non-spoiler review, and our recommendation and rating of that book. And we rated it a 7.0 out of 10. And just like not last week, but the week before we rated Fourth Wing 7.0, they are ranked 7.0 for completely different reasons. Then we moved on to a couple games. And the Protagonist IQ test, I gave Mason, 10 questions on the Wheel of Time series. And it turned out that he's pretty smart with the Wheel of Time. He got 110 IQ. And then he hosted a game for me where I had to hold my breath. And you'll kind of see what that's about if you go back. And then we went over how we could have made the Wheel of Time into a successful TV show adaptation. And I think we had some pretty great ideas, actually. And after that, your segment brought to you by Moe's Seafood and Chowder, the Weapon of Wisdom, fan favorite here on the Brotagonists podcast. Mason shared a funny quote with maybe some truth to it from Robert Jordan about patience and how patience is a choice in the end. That was Mason's takeaway. And we thank you for being here, everybody, listeners, watchers, subscribers, and followers. Thanks for following us on this journey and enjoying our community. It's been a fun time so far, and we're excited to continue on.
Smash that subscribe button. Thank you all for being here. Have a blessed week.
See you, Brotagonists.